Am I going to film this entire review in black and white? I guess you'll have to keep watching to find out. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and no, I'm not filming the rest of this in black and white, but yes, we are going to talk about Mank, directed by David Fincher, his first film since 2014's Gone Girl, and Mank stars Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried, Charles Dance, and Lily Collins. Before we get started, thank you so much to Netflix for giving me a chance to watch this early. This is a movie that, if you love cinema, guys, I think you might love this film. Before we get into what I liked and what I didn't like, though, guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below. Subscribe to the channel if you like early movie reviews just like this, and if you haven't, smash that like button and get loud in the comments and let me know what you thought of this movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And which performance was your favorite? Now, if you don't know much about Mank, let's break down what this film is about. It's 1940s Hollywood, and Herman Mankiewicz has been tasked with writing the screenplay for Citizen Kane, widely regarded as the greatest movie of all time. Throughout the writing process, we learn about Mank's struggles with alcoholism and gambling, and even travel back to the 30s to see how Mank found his motivation for this legendary script. Now, guys, before we hop into my positives, Mank is not a movie that will be for everyone. This is a film that's methodical. It takes you deep into the history of the 1930s and 40s in Hollywood, and it is a movie about movie making, so you have to enjoy those kinds of films, and if you do, Mank is for you. If not, it's okay if you don't love it, but let me talk about what I liked, because this movie is really good. There are some incredible performances here from Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried. Even though Gary Oldman doesn't necessarily look too much like Herman Mankiewicz, I still think it's his acting that makes me forget about that fact, and he just brings to life this character that I genuinely had no idea about. I mean, I didn't know much about the production of Citizen Kane and the writing process, so this was educational for me, however much of it was true. But man, Gary Oldman does a great job at just allowing the audience to feel his struggles with alcoholism, and I saw the love in his eyes for a good script. And at the end of the movie, I definitely understood his character a whole lot more. Now, this next actress is just mind-blowing. For me, Amanda Seyfried is the standout in this movie. She absolutely crushes it as Marion Davis. It was just wonderful casting here, and every scene she's in with Gary Oldman is electric. I was really captivated by every conversation, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but the conversations in this movie are really what I love the most. As for everyone else, the supporting cast was also really impressive. Tom Burke as Orson Welles, Charles Dance as William Hurst, and even Lily Collins as Mank's assistant, Rita Alexander. Okay, so now I get to talk about arguably the strongest area of Mank, and that is in the screenplay department. Man, the script here is just delightful. David Fincher's father, Jack, wrote the script back in the 1990s, and David Fincher actually wanted to direct this film many years ago, but it just never worked out. But now, I mean, this was just the perfect time. I really do believe that David Fincher's father would have been proud of what his son did with his script. The dialogue in Mank is snappy, and there's a great deal of complexity too. There are a lot of layers in this film. You go all the way from politics to movie making itself to life decisions. It can get really layered. But the movie's main focus really is Mank writing the script for Citizen Kane, and then everything in between our main plot are just a lot of flashbacks to Mank's past leading up to his work with Orson Welles, who, of course, if you don't know, directed and starred in Citizen Kane. But outside of the acting and the script, guys, the production for this movie is simply perfect. As a fan of movies about making movies, I got really excited when I saw that first trailer and understood that they were going to give us a history lesson in 30s and 40s in Hollywood. That, to me, is exciting, but what is bringing this movie to life really is not only the acting, but the set and costume designs and even the cinematography. Each scene just looked beautiful. Eric Messerschmidt, who handled the cinematography here, isn't a stranger to working with David Fincher. They both worked together on Mindhunter, and you can just tell, I mean, everything was firing on all cylinders. There was flawless direction, and I loved the look and the aesthetic of this film. Filming this entirely in black and white was the right choice too. I was just a big fan of seeing the cue marks on screen, the little film burns and the grain. It helped immerse me into the experience even though there was this glossy modern look that was distracting every now and then, that wasn't enough to take me out of this movie. And another thing that helped keep me in my seat and glued to my screen was the sound design. I know, it sounds silly, but between that and the score, everything just was a beautiful crescendo by the end. Now, when it comes to what I didn't like about Mank, there's not much to dislike, but my biggest drawback was its story structure. For the most part, I understand why the scenes were structured the way they were. We needed to understand how Mank got to be where he was at the beginning of the movie, and the only way to really get a deeper understanding for his character was to really have a ton of flashbacks in between, but it was those flashback moments that kind of halted the momentum every now and then of the movie. The second act is actually where I noticed this the most, with a lot of time spent in otherwise less than interesting conversations. Politics were a big deal in this movie, especially because there was a GOP candidate that was running for mayor in California up against someone who was, I think, lambasting him, calling this other candidate a mudraker or something like that. But basically, the studio was really pulling for this Republican candidate. And while the movie does focus on that and politics aren't boring, I would just say that it was in those moments where the movie kind of lingered a little too much and I almost wanted to just get to the next scene. I think spending less time in those moments would have benefited the film and given us more time with Mank in present day, which is actually where a lot more of the tension was found. There's this really cool thing the film does where in certain flashback moments that work, it helps paint a contrasting image of his current day situation. So where we saw Mank uncontrolled, he was unhinged, drinking a ton, and then we see Mank in present day a little bit more, I guess, under control, and he has people around him to hold him accountable. I found that to be a really cool compare contrast that David Fincher was playing with. But overall, you guys, Mank is a delicious film for those who love cinema. I am a sucker for learning about the history behind some of the greatest films of all time, and David Fincher delivered exactly that. With excellent performances all the way around, it's going to be hard to choose an exact favorite, but what I will say is that Amanda Seyfried and Gary Oldman made me want more and more scenes with just them conversing with one another. This movie is going to be nominated for plenty of awards, especially at this year's Oscars. I mean, they might even win in some major categories. But what I will say is that David Fincher deserves praise for this film. It is just excellent. Even though the structure of the story might be a little lopsided, it's the writing, the allure of Hollywood, and the characters that made me really enjoy this film. Some may say David Fincher is back, but ladies and gentlemen, he never left. Instead, he reminded us of his brilliance with Mank. Alrighty, you guys, well there you have it. That's my real review of Mank debuting exclusively on Netflix. But hey, I want to know what you guys have to say about the film. So go ahead and get loud in the comments and let's have a conversation about this one. Like this video, and if you haven't already, hit that big red button below and subscribe to the channel and tap on that bell so you don't miss out on anything new. Guys, we're finishing 2020 strong. December is very busy. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom next week. That's going to be a fun one. Alrighty guys, again, thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you at the next screening.